Are you ready?
Boom. Oh, sure.
Roll the thing. See, I don't think I did it the last time. I don't think I did the roll the thing, the
Roll the
intro.
thing.
Yeah, roll the intro. Oh, that's what I usually say. Roll the intro.
Oh. Oh my god.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bitcade. This is episode.
Whatever.
And as you can tell, this is the second one since we've been back, and we're still remote. I actually saw Ashton for the first time in a year, actually this weekend. So that was it this weekend or last week?
Yeah.
It's already been a week since I saw you. All right. Anyway, yeah, Ashton, how's it going? How was your weekend? It was a long weekend for yourself, yeah.
Yeah. We had quite the, snow thing happen. I wouldn't even call it a storm, to be honest. But yeah, we got like, what, 8 inches of snow? 8 to 10 inches of snow total. It's going away now. Yeah, I hurt my back because I'm an idiot. I went I bombed a hill on an inner tube, hit a jump, and I actually flew off of the tube midair, then landed on it as it hit the ground, bounced off of it, flipped over, did a backflop, and somehow bounced off of my back and then tumbled down the rest of the hill. So, yeah, it was a little
That's a
sore
little
for work.
eventful. Yeah.
Yeah, still went up a few more times after that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
My this was my dog's first time seeing snow, so we got some videos of that of him. He's not very big because he's a Shih Tzu, so he literally just flops right into the snow if you drop him into it. The snow was above his head, and so he had to trudge through it a little bit when he went out. But he got to see it, so he was good. He was fine. I'm sure it was cold as shit though. So
oh, he didn't care, I bet.
yeah, but he'd eat the snow a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, eat the water. Anyway, yeah, so snowy weekend for us here in Pacific Northwest, but let's get to the topics of the show, shall we? In this episode, we are going to be talking about PlayStation 5 on the Xbox. We're also talking about AO games, not the AOK, those games. We're talking about adults-only games. So hide the children, because we're going to talk about the pornography games. So those are their thing. And then we're going to be talking about what makes next-gen games next-gen games. Where's the cutoff point? We're going to talk about those two. Let's talk about the first topic. First topic is PS5 games are coming to the Xbox Series of consoles, the Xbox Series X and the Series S. Now, more specifically, the one that really kind of started this conversation was MLB The Show is now coming to the Xbox platform, which is the first time that the Xbox is getting a full-fledged baseball game that's like a simulation game. I mean, there's RBI baseball, but that's really not as big as this game coming over. So I guess the conversation starter is, are there games that you would like to see come over from the Xbox? And I mean, as Ashton, you and I, we have all the platforms here, so it's not really necessarily a thing that is too outrageous for us to really even care about, because it's not really something that we got to decide. But the main question is, would it be kind of cool to see games coming over to the next gen, on this next gen, this generation of the Xbox Series and the PS5, and even including the Switch? What games would be cool to kind of be playing on all of those platforms? Maybe as a cross-platform type of game, things like that. What are your thoughts so far with MLB The Show crossing over to Xbox?
I mean, it's cool. I mean, to me, it's just kind of like, whatever. I'm not really big into sports games typically. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of meh for me. I think it's cool for people who really like baseball games and don't have a PlayStation. But I'm really hoping that this kind of like has a somewhat of a domino effect and brings over some other titles. Maybe not their like flagship, what they're known for titles like bring Last of Us or God of War over to Xbox. Probably not a good business move. But there's a few games that they could probably do it with. Like, I mean, even like look at that game Genshin Impact. I think that's like a PlayStation exclusive.
I think on console,
Uh,
yeah, I think you
yeah,
can.
for console.
But I think you can play it on like mobile and PC. So.
Yeah, but it's like, just bring that over to Xbox, make it cross-platform, and that game is gonna do way better. You know,
Hmm.
it's not a game that everybody's gonna go get a PlayStation for. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
It's definitely that thought of like what is a company to do when there's like, because right now you got, if you look at Xbox, for example, they've been known to do this. They've been kind of the first people to kind of be doing this whole bring over their games to other consoles, like the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation hardware, because of, for example, like Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori Will of the Wisp.
Mhm.
Those
Yeah.
are Xbox games going over to the Nintendo Switch, and I think you can play it on PlayStation. I'm not, don't quote me on PlayStation, but I know you can play it
I
on.
don't think so.
Okay, but I know that it's on the Nintendo Switch, and also if we
Yeah.
look at it even more in
Good fit
depth,
too.
yeah, and I think that's kind of the level and caliber that you kind of got to look at. Of, it's going to be those kind of games. I think you're right. It's not going to be those major like AAA games. But then again, you look at MLB The Show. I mean, that's the only baseball game of its kind right now. That's like if EA was strictly on like Xbox consoles and Madden was coming over to like the now Madden is going to be able to be played on the PlayStation. It's kind of that level for baseball, because there really isn't, like, no one else makes baseball games to the caliber, because 2K, they walked away from the Major League Baseball stuff, and I think MLB actually signed a contract with PlayStation to make that game exclusive. But I'm sure Major League Baseball is also thinking to themselves of like, yeah, can you put us on all our platforms, because we don't see very many fans anymore. So like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think this is definitely the biggest game in popularity and hardware wise, because
Yeah.
usually the MLB games look really nice and they are very high res. Um, but yeah, so like, what would you, where would you see the cutoff point of like the PlayStation games? Like, what game do you think would be kind of a good one to be PlayStation releasing? Let's go through like all three of them, of like, what would be your PlayStation game to cross over to both consoles, or maybe just the one because you think of hardware
Um,
setbacks.
I mean, to be honest, I mean the only one that you're gonna see hardware setbacks for is gonna be really the Switch. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, there's not a game out there right now that would be, easy for one console to run and difficult for the other. Which, Xbox being a more powerful console, there's not a game that they've made that you wouldn't be able to actually have working on a PlayStation. There's just not a game out like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably won't see a game out there like that because there's not that much of a gap. Um, but one game I think that would do fine going over would be a game like The Medium.
Oh,
That
so
one would
from
be
Xbox to
to
the PlayStation.
PlayStation,
Okay.
yeah, because they have a bunch of fans over there of that genre, like any sort of like puzzle, psychological horror type stuff. They're going to be getting that one game. God damn it, what was it called? It had Norman Reedus in it. Is that
Uh,
horror game that got shut down?
oh yeah, man, I know that. I know
PT,
it.
PT.
Well, there's PT. Yeah, there's PT.
Yeah, PT was going to come out, and everybody was super excited about that. It was going to be PlayStation exclusive.
Well,
Didn't
also
come
not to
out.
mention, usually the Resident Evil sort of exclusive stuff kind of hits PlayStation a little bit first.
Yeah,
Like, for example, Maiden, the Resident Evil Village tech demo is
right,
only right now at the moment exclusive to PlayStation. So yeah, I'd
right.
see your horror
So,
thing.
I mean, and it's not like I understand it's like an Xbox Studio thing where they have it on released on Game Pass and everything like that. And Bloober Team, really cool studio. Um, I feel like that game is not ever that studio isn't really going to be in the near future pushing out any like flagship games. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be in their best interest to at least do like a timed release. Hey, get it first on the Xbox with Game Pass, so you don't have to buy it if you have your subscription, or you can wait like 6 months and get it on PlayStation at full price.
So you're saying if Microsoft does this whole thing of where they get these games, if they were to start putting games on other consoles, which obviously they've kind of done what you're saying right now is put their game, whatever game and deal that they have or they produced, on the Game Pass, so that they can fully lock in and say, hey, if you want to play an Xbox game, you can play it for free here. But I'm just throwing it out there. I know this is a long shot, but just bear with me here. But if you want to play Halo on the other consoles, you're gonna have to play it on. You have to pay $70 for it or $60 for it.
See, I don't think they would go that route. I think what they would do instead is what I think they will eventually do within the next decade, or even start happening within the next 5 years. This is kind of a stretch too. Is they're going to really start pushing that Xbox Play Anywhere and allow you to play on a PlayStation. Obviously not the same quality because you'll be streaming it, but you'll be able to stream Halo from your PlayStation.
With xCloud is what you're talking about.
With xCloud, okay. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Spencer kind of alluded to maybe possibly this like Chromecast type thing also coming soon. So that's not too far out of the question if they start doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because you'd be able to plug that into your PlayStation.
Yeah, or just your TV.
Or just your TV too. And that way, like, they still get the subscription out of you because they don't make money from the console sales. They make money from the software and the subscriptions.
So yeah, I would like to see if PlayStation keeps going this route. Because there's so many PlayStation titles that I think a lot of the Xbox like diehards are not going to switch over, but they still want to play those games. And I think a really good title, a really good series, would be Uncharted. I think Uncharted could get released like how the show is, and if they were to, because I mean, thing is like at the end of the day, MLB The Show has the PlayStation logo on the cover. It's like smack dab right on the. It's not like Minecraft where it just says Mojang and it's done. It's like, no, this one actually says PlayStation Studios, and then it also says it's not Santa Monica. I can't remember what studio makes MLB The Show, but it does say PlayStation Studios as the publisher on the cover of the game. So, and even on the Xbox version of the game, it does say that as well. So I think where Microsoft had to choose, or Xbox had to choose do we take this and let them brand it however they want it and just take the L and we still about to pay? I think that Microsoft at this point really had to choose of like, you know what? Let's just take the L. Let's pay them their 20% or whatever and call it for what it is. They get the sale, they get to move on. And PlayStation had to make that decision too of like, hey, we got to take the L on this because now they don't need to buy our hardware. They don't need to buy our $500 and $400 hardwares. They could just keep their Xbox and buy the cheap Xbox now in order to play that game. But at the end of the day, Sony still is making money. But I think that Uncharted, the reason why I said that specifically is because Uncharted could probably play on every console. Like, it probably could play on the Switch because there was a game on the Vita called Uncharted Golden Abyss, and that was a Vita exclusive. Now, there are some things in that game that are specific to the Vita, but it would be kind of cool to start seeing, like, if they wanted to keep doing this route, to put Uncharted, and they were PS3 games, so obviously they're going to be able to run on, if the Switch can run LA Noire, we at least know that they can run a semi-decent open world game. And so with this, and Rockstar did take care of that, and they did put some love into that game, but that port. But I think it would be kind of cool to see those games being able to be at least on the Switch and be portable like that, where you can kind of play all of the Nathan Drake collection. Maybe not 4, but you can at least play 1 through 3 and have a good time with those. I would think that would be a cool PlayStation port if they wanted to do that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad. I mean, there's not like, trying to think if there's going to be any other sort of like crossovers with Nintendo and Microsoft, because they're starting to do it a little bit more. You see it in Smash. Steve from Minecraft's in there. Everybody was hoping for Master Chief, but that's fine. I'd like to see these big companies do more collaborative projects, because eventually, it's going to be in their best interest to essentially make like a gigantic like universe, since they're like the big three pillars on the console side. Obviously you're going to have PC on its lonesome, probably for the remainder of everybody's existence. But I think what would be really, really cool would be just a just one device everybody gets, and essentially Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony end up becoming like these almost like a third party. So it'd be like a generalized, like decentralized, like piece of equipment, and everybody that makes games on it is going to be third party.
Yeah, I mean that is the hope and dream, but it's I think there's so much money that's made in the hardware, and obviously it helps out Sony a lot when PlayStation's doing really really well when they're selling those consoles.
Yeah,
Like
but the
I think they were
consoles are sold at a loss, though.
yeah, but they're also paid with the subscriptions. So you get the
Right.
console in there, then you get the people paying $60 a year for it. So it comes into this idea of like if PlayStation is going to keep making the console, which I think they would be the last, honestly, unless Sony totally was going bankrupt. And they were at it. I mean, not they were, but they were suffering pretty bad at a point where it almost didn't look too great for Sony. But PlayStation kept the revenue coming in, so they were able to kind of get that back. Uh, and I think we've talked about this in the past too. When if they were to branch off, if Sony was to get like say, hey, we're just cutting the PlayStation division, it would go into a publisher, and it would just be exactly how you said. They would just publish the game. They already have PlayStation Studios as their like name for that now, which is where Santa Monica falls under, where Naughty Dog falls under, where Insomniac falls under. Like it's Microsoft Studios, but theirs is PlayStation.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and I think that eventually it would be like they'd just be a publisher, and then eventually they would just sell off assets as they kind of go, sell off a studio here and there, and then kind of move on. But and that's the thing with all three of the companies, and you're right, there are three pillars. It is Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. You're either Team Red, Team Blue, or Team Green, and it kind of like throws into this perspective of are they ever going to die? Because it is weird how like Nintendo's survived a long ass time. They've been a part of
Yeah.
console war after console war. Now they've just survived so long that you really can't get rid of them unless they decide to start making games for other platforms.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is like they have, they have the child market too.
Yep, the family
The
gaming.
family friendly, which is
Yep.
like super important in society right now. Just having family friendly content available, and making sure that they're not going to accidentally download something that they shouldn't. And any friends they make on like playing the Nintendo Switch, aren't going to be trying to talk them into getting some like crazy game. I mean, they have Doom on there now, ported over, but I mean that's like about as gory as it gets over there. That's like the one big
Now
game over there
apparently
that's pretty
apparently
pretty
there
gory.
are hentai games starting to be brought
What?
over. Yep, I'll have to look them up. I heard it on
I am
GameScoop the other
extremely
day.
surprised by
But
that.
there's like hentai versus something or other. But essentially, it's like it's porn versus something. But they've let it go onto the Switch store. It's pretty interesting that
Oh,
they
that's
just like
bad.
yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, that Nintendo
Um,
seal is starting to kind of peel off a little bit. But I get what you're saying though. It's definitely still the family console, and it's still going
yeah.
for it. But
I
anyway, go
mean,
back.
Nintendo is in that kind of like realm where they have some sort of like invulnerability where like they can do nothing wrong. Like they will continue to just like be super anti-consumer, which they are. I'm gonna be honest. In my opinion, they are pretty anti-consumer. Um, their games will only drop in price when there is a holiday sale or some event going on. You could Breath of the Wild. I bet is still $60 right now. I would not be surprised if
Well,
it's still
Pokemon
full
still
price.
is.
Yeah. And they are so brand new to the whole internet thing because they want to decide for their players that online isn't fun, so we're not going to do it. And now they're in it, but it's just kind of like, you know, they do a lot of shady shit, and they make you buy it, like make you pay astronomical prices for any sort of like accessory or anything. They gouge you. They are the Apple of the gaming industry. Um, but you know they're good. They're good at what they do, so they get away with it.
Yeah, it definitely moves into this like yeah, and I think that as long as they can keep the Mario, the Zelda, the Pokemon, like as long as they keep those there, they're untouchable. Like no
Yep.
one can touch them with that. And because there aren't any games like it. Like those games. I mean,
True.
sure, but everyone copies them. That's the thing.
Yeah. You'd
So
have to make it very different. You'd have to change up the formula a little bit. Like I don't know. I think it'd be really interesting to see like either Sony or Microsoft take a stab at making a Pokemon-esque game. You know, because Pokemon's competitors back in the day were like Digimon and like Yu-Gi-Oh. Like that's pretty much it. And I mean, they're Digimon's died completely. Where Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, I'm sure in like the card trading area is still fine. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm not really in that whole thing, but like as far as games go, it's just Pokemon.
yeah, I mean yeah,
That's it. Like
and not to mention it's like Pokemon has like now 25 years, celebrating 25 years of Pokemon. So it's like, um, you know it's now got to this point of um I don't think anyone's ever gonna topple them down, and they've got so much built on that. And
I think
I
it
mean,
can be
what
done.
was that?
Though.
What was that
I think it
one?
can be done.
You really do. What's that one game
I
that
do.
came out on PlayStation? It's like they copied them a little bit. It has, but the thing is like, it comes back
You
to that
can't
thing.
copy,
It comes,
though.
yeah,
You can't do a
exactly. It
reskin.
can't copy, but it's like, where does that line go? Where it's just not? Why doesn't Nintendo just port over Pokemon? Like, why doesn't the Pokemon Company decide, hey, we're going to make our console release, our console debut, and we're going to play it on the Xbox? You can officially play Pokemon on the Xbox.
Well,
I don't think
because
those
they
companies are prepared for that hardware, honestly.
yeah. So here's the thing. Because once you start getting, here's my theory. Once you start getting that into the hands of people who don't do anything Nintendo, like they don't care about the Switch, they don't care about those little kid games, but as soon as it shows up where you can buy it on your Xbox, they're like, maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I'll check it out. And then there'll be another like resurgence, you know, for like main, you know, like the PlayStation and Xbox players, they start playing a bunch of Pokemon and they end up liking it, but they're like, yeah, but I mean, it's still, I feel like kind of weird playing it because, you know, it's like for kids, is how everybody feels about Pokemon. And like, I wish there was like something like this, but
More adult.
more adult.
Yeah.
And that Xbox and PlayStation would be the place that you do that at.
Mm-hmm.
So then Pokemon would then have a competitor instead of having like old fans filled with nostalgia wanting to just play Pokemon because they want to play Pokemon. All the Pokemon they know and love usually aren't in these new games like being prevalent and like use all the new Pokemon. Like all like the Gen 1, 2, 3 OG people don't really, for the most part, care for like the new weird shaped and colored, weird lazy ass Pokemon that they come up with. Um, so coming up with doing a port, I feel like they're kind of holding their cards a little close to their chest, and I think that could be a reason why they don't want a different version of Pokemon to come out for people who are, you know, like you and me, were like OG Pokemon, like Gen 1, like we were there the beginning,
Yeah.
like we were there. I'm not there anymore. I don't like the new Pokemon games. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not. I'll go back and play everything up to like gold,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. I've heard the outcries from different places of the when will Pokemon ever go a little bit more mature? Not hitting the mature rating, obviously, but like you know,
Right.
maybe
But
an
T for teen at
E10
least.
or yeah, a 10 or a T for teen, and it's like plot. Like people want story to the game.
Yeah,
And
they
and
want Pokemon to be more than what it is now.
and I will say I'll give them to Sword and Shield because Sword and Shield had sort of more character development, but it's like it gets to a point where I think it comes down to Pokemon just doesn't want to branch away from what the game actually is. It's a JRPG that you run around and you go capture little monsters.
Right.
That's
They have
it.
a formula that works, and they don't,
Yeah.
don't fix what ain't broke kind
And
of thing.
it's kind of that thing of like the best I can relate it to is Call of Duty this year, where Call of Duty Cold War introduced like dialogue choices. Now, if they ever expand upon that, then great. I think that would be cool that Call of Duty would start to do that. Assassin's Creed started doing that, and I think it adds more to that's your character. That is who you are. You are this character making the decisions, telling the
This
story.
is your story.
And to me, if I'm a lifeless 10-year-old husk running around, I feel like there should be some choices that I get to do. Like, and I know that Pokemon throws it in there every once in a while, but it's so far and few between, and they don't really put that in those games. And I think it comes down to those games are definitely simple for children. It is the reason why we fell in love with it is because they were for kids. They were easy to understand. The number system isn't elaborate. It's not Final Fantasy where you got to go and try to figure out, well, do I add this to this? You don't have to worry about that. You can just totally pick a guy. You can totally give your Pokemon like all offensive moves, and you could still beat the whole entire game. Like, and you don't even have to do defense, and you can just do all offense. And it works because the game is designed for a kid to just have fun and just enjoy being in that world of Pokemon. But I think, yeah, if you go to you definitely talked about that
There's
too.
there's definitely a market for a Pokemon competitor for a more mature audience. There definitely is, and it's just how to do it and doing it right.
Yeah, because like Ni no Kuni tried to do it. It has sort of those elements, but it's not really there. The next JRPG I would say that would be kind of there is Persona. Is where like you get the personas, you learn, you capture them, you can bring them into your team and use them for as whatever you can. But again, that game does so well is because I think a lot of Pokemon fans play Persona and that's exclusive to PlayStation. So that would be a cool game to see also on the Xbox of like maybe Persona and Shinigami Tensei, because Atlas, they don't make there's not a lot of Xbox Atlas games, because you got PlayStation having Persona, you got Nintendo having Shinigami Tensei, which sort of crosses over at a point. But Xbox, they get the dance all night games. They just get the dancing games. They don't get any of the Persona or the Shinigami Tensei games. But I think those are the closest things we get to the mature versions of Pokemon, because you could still not really have to look into statistics and things. You have to at a point, obviously, because that's how those games are played. But yeah, I think with how this is going, maybe Pokemon is just never destined to go there. Even though it would be cool, I think you're right. I think it just needs that mature boost in order to get to the green and blue brand. So yeah, I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
So wrapping this up, just to put it on a nice little bow. Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. Is it cool that this is happening? What are the next things that could possibly start happening if this starts to continue? If PlayStation starts putting more games out there for both consoles, Xbox is doing that already. Nintendo's still kind of keeping it close, but maybe eventually they'll open that door. What are you thinking? Is the next things if they keep doing that?
Is the next things?
Yeah. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing. More collaboration, the better. The more ports, the better. Just getting everybody a little bit of everything on their plate is always good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking that if this starts to happen more, we're going to see a lot more cross-platform. I think the cross-platform multiplayer stuff was a nice little bridge starter, and to get to this point here, because now Xbox gamers can play. They've said Xbox gamers can play with PlayStation players on on MLB The Show. So yeah, maybe that unification of all consoles might be sooner than later, and it's just. But I think at this point now, it's pick your box and wait until one of the publishers decides that we're just gonna put it on everything. So, all right, you good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're moving on.
Oh my god.
Can I go now? Come on.
You have to go now.
What the fuck are you doing?